welcome everybody. So nice to see so many here. And my name is Kimberly Hotellin. I have a herbal business called Root Vine Healing, and I'm based in Corinth, Vermont. It's a home-based business. I do classes for adults. I do herb camps for kids. I have an herbal product line that I sell, and I see clients in my home office. So I've been doing this for more than 25 years. Just been, once I got out of college, just became obsessed with plants and healing after I majored in biology in college and focused on botany. And there was no place there for me to start my herbal obsession. So once I got out, I just became obsessed, and I still am. And so welcome to today's class, where we will be discussing some plants and medicinal plants and how to grow them and how to use them. And one of my main missions with my business is to really teach and empower and awaken people to the incredible healing potential that exists in plants that are growing right around us, right outside our doors, in our fields, in our forests. If some of you, I think, were here last time too, and that, it's the herbs as well that are in our kitchens and in our refrigerators. There's so much healing potential right around us, and it brings in so much health and vitality and creativity and fun when we start discovering all the things we can do with all these incredible plants and flowers and fun things growing around us and in our kitchen. So tonight we'll talk about some growing some things as our gardening season is coming up. I wish we could be in person and we could dig up some things and go look at some things, but this will be okay for now. So what I have decided to do to talk a little bit about growing and gardening is I've sort of imagined and created 2 herb gardens that each of them has 3 plants in them. And I designed them thinking of heights, the appropriate heights. So we have the tall ones and the medium ones and the short ones and in each one. And also designed them thinking of wanting them to be beautiful. And hold on one sec. I will start sharing my screen here. I believe. There we go. So it's so incredible to me still. I don't think it ever is going to end the fascination and the inspiration that I find from the fact that we can grow these plants, and they're easy to grow, and they're gorgeous. And so they provide us with so much beauty and joy, and then at the same time, they're incredible medicine, and that we can use inside our bodies. And that, to me, that's just incredible. And I won't go on about that, but I could. So what I've done is I've created these 2 gardens, and I grow all these plants, but I haven't actually grown them in these small little gardens that I've created to talk about to you tonight. But so I've made a collage. I made a collage of each one to show you, sort of get a general idea of what they'll look like. And then we'll go through, and I have pictures of each of the plants in each of the gardens. So let's see. Here we go. So here's the collage of the first garden. It's the Monarda Yarrow Lemon Balm Garden. And and that's also why I called this Medicinal Beauty Gardens, not because we're actually going to be talking about how we can use them for our own beauty, which could be another class, but just the beauty that they provide us in looking at them, and for cut flowers. I wanted to choose ones that were gorgeous as well. So it's the Monarda Yarrow Lemon Balm Garden. So just the stunning reds and dark reds and purples with the Monarda, and then the Yarrow below that, and then the bright green lemon balm around the bottom. So let's start talking about the plant. So Monarda is also called bee balm. It's also called Oswego tea. It's also called bergamot. There's many different names. And the Monarda didyma, the one here, the purple one there, that's the native species, and that is native to North America. And the reason it's called Oswego tea is that the Oswego natives in New York, what is now New York, used this in a tea, and the colonists learned this from the Oswego Indians and natives, and so it's also called Oswego tea. And it's a perennial. It likes to grow in sun or shade. Often places will say you need to grow it in sun, but I've seen it growing in full shade and done beautifully. It can grow 3 feet to 5 feet tall. It does spread. This is the only ones in these that I'll talk about that really does sort of, you have to watch it spreading. It like really creeps up in and around all your plants, or all the plants that it's growing near. And so every spring, it's definitely a good idea to get down in there. And once you know it, it's easy to find its little rootlets, little spreading rhizome things, and pull them out if you don't want them there. But it's not hard to get out. It's not one of those that has a really deep roots that's hard to dig out. You just kind of pull it out and make sure you tend it and keep it where you want it. But that's also great in that in order to get some of it, it's easy to get. Usually if you have friends with gardens that have Monarda in them, they'll be happy to give you some, and you just dig up little pieces of it and you stick it in your garden, and it's very hardy. It will grow. You can also, you can start it from seed, and about 8 to 10 weeks before the frost-free date, you could start it inside under lights and seed. But it's also easy to get at any garden centers and start as starts. And butterflies and hummingbirds love it. I do grow both the kinds. There's all different kinds of Monarda now, with all the breeding and stuff. But as I said, the lighter purple one, the Monarda didyma, is the native, and that one really does have the most potent volatile oils and medicine. However, I grow for fistulosa actually even more, because I just love it. I just look at that flower; it's just stunning, and it still is very potent. So. But the red ones, this is what I was saying, is the red ones really attract the hummingbirds. When you grow these in your garden, you just have tons of hummingbirds coming in. So that's a great thing. And bees, so great for pollinators. And it flowers from about mid to midsummer on, and it is deer resistant, has tons of volatile oils, so that makes it so the deer tend to shy away from it, although it's hard to say that these days. Deer seem to kind of eat anything sometimes now, but it is deer resistant. So let's see, to harvest it. So we want the parts used for medicine with Monarda are the leaves and the flowers. And this one in the center, you can see it just has all these little, I can't do that. Anyways, you can see those little white hairs on that leaf, maybe in the center. And at the end of every little white hair is a little ball of essential oil. And it's just filled with antimicrobial essential oils, the Monarda. And so you want to harvest it when it's in full vibrant flower, and you harvest the leaves and you harvest the flowers. And you can cut it back all the way down when it's in full flower like that, and cut back all the stalks and dry all the leaves and the flowers. And then it will grow again and you'll get another harvest. I don't like to do that just because it's so stunning. I love to have it in my garden. And so I'll go out and harvest parts of it and let parts of it grow back and harvest more parts of it. And anyways, but so it's the above ground parts. And it's important to know when you're harvesting herbs, when you want to harvest them, to dry them, which all of these I'll be talking about will be great to dry and to have in tea, as well as doing other things with them. But when you want to dry things, it's very important to make sure that the herb is dry. So you don't harvest it in the morning when there's dew or after a rain. So, midday on a sunny day. And so that's really important. Otherwise, your herbs will tend to mold when you're trying to dry them that way, if they have moisture in them. So, so Monarda, just really antimicrobial. And in particular, I use it in particular for stomach bugs. So it seems to have some kind of special something that helps with stomach bugs as far as being antimicrobial in that way. So I will have people do the tincture of Monarda or the tea, if you have a stomach bug, like every 2 hours and until it subsides, and it really helps lessen the duration of that. And it helps to calm and soothe the belly as well, because it is in the mint family. And so it is good in that way when you have the tummy bugs. And it is also, it's fun because I like the red one too, because when you make the tea with it, the red color comes out into the tea. So you have this beautiful dark red tea. So that's really fun. And it's fun with kids at herb camp. And you can then pour that into ice cube trays and your Monarda tea. And so you have these bright red ice cubes with the Monarda and the Monarda flavor. It smells, some people don't like the smell and some people love it. Like bergamot, it's a little citrusy. It's very pungent, spicy. So you get that. It's fun to put in cocktails, those ice cubes, or that they're red or just any fun drinks. So, and it's also nice to have in a tea blend because it retains its red color when you dry it, or the purple color. And it's nice to have colors in your tea blends in the winter. And let's see. So also it's antifungal. So I'll use it in some Candida blends. And you can make a tea, use this for vaginal douche for vaginal yeast infections, and you'll combine it with calendula, which we'll be talking about in a little bit as well. And also sort of in a general blend in a cold flu kind of tea prevention. I would add it into there, or just alone. That's great. You can also take the flowers and the leaves and chop it up and put it in your salads. Adds a nice color and adds a nice sort of pungenty, spicy taste. And its taste also lends itself to marinating with meats. Just cut it fresh and stick it in your meats for marinating. Makes a really, really, really lovely flavor. And as I said, it's good for digestion, helps relieve gas, bloating. Makes a vinegar. You can it will make a dark kind of red vinegar as well, so that's kind of fun and tasty on your foods, and can take as medicine. So there's some on our Monarda. So that's the tall one in the back of this little herb garden. And then the next one, which is a little shorter, now my arrows aren't working. Wonder if I should escape and go back.
Yeah, try escaping and then hitting play again.
Okay. Oh, can't escape. That's weird. Escape isn't doing anything.
Let's see. I could end screen sharing and we could go back in from scratch. Would you like to do that?
Yeah, why don't we try that? I think it's something stuck on my end. Okay. Okay. Try again. There we go. It's working now.
Good.
Okay, so on to yarrow. Yarrow, you probably know yarrow. It grows all over. It can be kind of become a weed kind of in our meadows and in our fields. And it's a perennial. And if you do, again, easy to find at garden centers as a start. But if you want to start it from seed, you can start it from seed. Just do it about 10 weeks before you want to set it out. And you do not want to cover it with soil, as it needs light to germinate. So you just keep it moist. But yarrow likes full sun. It can be in partial sun. Rich soil was good. It'll make it sort of more dense and not as tall and leggy when you have rich soil. Doesn't like to be in wet areas. You don't want its roots. Doesn't like its roots wet. Does well in drought conditions. And again, bees and butterflies and pollinators love yarrow as well. And yarrow as well makes a beautiful cut flower, as well as the Monarda, and they last a long time, and they look great together in a bouquet. And they also both dry well, so you can dry them as far as how they look, as far as for beauty. You can hang them in your house and make flower arrangements, dried flower arrangements, and they'll last. So that's kind of fun. So the flowering tops of yarrow and the leaves, you pick the 6-8 inches tops when you're harvesting. And again, when you're harvesting flowers and above ground parts, it's usually always when the flowers are in their height. And so when the flowers are in their height is when all the essential oils and the medicines are really in their highest concentrations when the flowers are in their peak. So you harvest it at that time. And yarrow has many uses. It's also called woundwort or soldier's wort. Wort means plant. And because it's an astringent and a vulnerary and antimicrobial, among other things. So, but those three things. Astringent means it tightens and tones our tissues, and a vulnerary means it heals the tissues, and antimicrobial. And so all these things together lend it to being a great remedy for hemorrhoids. So it really sort of tightens and tones that tissue and then heals it. And so you can make it into an oil and dry the yarrow flowers and infuse it in oil. And that's a great thing to put throughout the day on hemorrhoids. And then you can also chop it up and make an infusion, make a tea with it, cover it when you're making the tea so the volatile oils don't escape, and let it sit for at least half hour. You can let it sit overnight, and then you can use that strong infusion for a sitz bath. And that's really wonderful for sort of shrinking hemorrhoids and brings relief. It's also pain relieving. And it's also great for after births when we might have tears and wounds. It's great in a sitz bath and an oil for that as well. And it's also just great as an oil for an all over skin healing oil, and made into a salve, and to put on scrapes and cuts and rashes. It's antimicrobial and healing. Another thing, and this is one reason why it was called, soldier's wort, is that also is a styptic, meaning that it stops bleeding. It helps the blood to clot. So if you are out and about and you do get a deep cut and it's bleeding and you need it to stop, you can look around for yarrow. And, in a pinch, when you're out and you don't have anything else, you can look around for that yarrow, chew it up. This is often a way you can do with herbs, is you can, when you're out there and you take it, you chew it up. And so it gets crunched up, the cell walls break, and it gets moist and starts, secreting its medicine. And then you stick it on your wound, and it can really help stop the bleeding, staunch the bleeding. So good to know, just kind of a little first aid thing if you're out and about and you got a deep cut. I've taken it in herb camp and we've dried it and powdered it up in the coffee grinder and have it in a little make it in a little baggie, and for part of our first aid kits is to have in there for that purpose of antimicrobial and for the stopping the bleeding. Let's see, and also as far as that goes, this sort of how it has the ability to, in a different way though, but it can, when we have one who has just heavy menstruation with lots of pain and lots of cramps, Yarrow is a particular here. Nice one to have them drink Yarrow tea throughout the menstruation, and it really can lessen the decrease the amount of blood, and it's antispasmodic and can bring pain relief. So it's traditionally and currently been used a lot in that way as well. And it's also it's a diaphoretic, and so it is, which means that it opens our pores and helps us to sweat. And it's a traditionally and currently a one that's typically in many herbal formulas that will help support us through a fever, because it helps to sort of like when our bodies are heating up and heating up and heating up, which is really good to remember or relearn or try to get comfortable with, that a fever is really an important part of our immune system supporting us. So a fever is a good thing. It's so easy in this day and age for us to feel like a fever is a bad thing. When we get a fever, oh my God, we have to get rid of it. And actually, it's best to allow our bodies to have the fever, because the fever is heating up our bodies and killing off the pathogens. The heat is there to kill off the pathogens. And so it's good to try and relax when you have a fever and not jump to the fever medications to just, which will suppress the fever and turn it off, because there's studies that have shown that when we do that, usually the duration of the infection will be longer. And whereas if we allow ourselves to have the fever, go through the fever, the sickness is shorter, because it's doing its thing. It's killing off more of the pathogens. All that to say, there are times when the fever gets too high, 104, 105, and then maybe it's time to take those over-the-counter pain fever reducers. But anyway, so Yarrow is a wonderful fever support tea to drink or tincture when we want to support ourselves through the flu, through the fevery time. So like I was saying, it's like our bodies are heating up and heating up and heating up. And then Yarrow or these diaphoretics, it's like kind of opening a window. And we open the window, and then we can help release some of that heat, help sweat. And so it brings the fever down, but not in a way that it's just going to shut off the fever. So there's some wonderful things about Yarrow. Okay, now next in our layers of this garden, so this was the Monarda, Yarrow, lemon balm garden. So the lemon balm's around the bottom. And it's a bright green, beautiful, another perennial. It's in the mint family. And it's very easy to grow. Again, it spreads, but not so you have to be concerned, but it does. So often people who have lemon balm in their garden will be happy to share it. So so many of these plants, for me, that's the best way I get my perennials, is just getting them from friends' gardens. You just take a little digging, little clumps, and you set it in your garden, and there you have it. But from starts, you can get these. This is always, you always have lemon balm usually in the herb section of garden centers, and but you can start it from seed. It's another one like the Yarrow that when starting from seed, you don't want to cover it with soil because it needs light to germinate. And you start at about 8 to 10 weeks before the last frost-free date. And so when to harvest, you harvest all of the above ground parts of the lemon balm. And when is the same thing with the others, is that when it starts to flower. So it'll have this nice sort of rounded clump of the green leaves, and then it will start sending up these little stalks, and on the little stalks we'll have the little pinkish white flowers. And as those flowers start to open, that's when the volatile oils are the highest, and that's when you want to harvest it. And I do just go in and use my sort of Japanese saw or sickle if you have it, or you can use scissors or a clipper. And I pretty much cut down the top 3/4 of it at least, and harvest it and hang it up to dry. I put it on screens to dry herbs. You can different ways, but you want enough air. You want to dry them out of the sun. And so I have often just find old screens and put them around my house and places. And that's how I dry my herbs a lot. And then you can also take them in bunches and tie them up and hang them from your rafters or wherever. But yeah, out of the sun. And not to, when you dry them, you want to not have them in a big clump. You want them to be spread out so they get air and they don't mold. Yeah. Anyway, so so I'll cut it, I'll cut all my lemon balm back, and then it will regrow again, and you'll get to harvest it at least a couple times, maybe a few times in the season if you want a lot of lemon balm. It is wonderful in a tea. It is cooling. So I love it's really often ready in the heat of the summer when things are getting a little too hot for me. And so I will always brew up lemon balm tea. And I like to add, it is limonene flavor, but not a huge amount, but it is limonene flavor. And then I like to add squeeze a little lemon in there as well to kind of enhance its lemony taste. And I do add a little honey. And it's just very cooling. Whether you drink it, whether you drink it warm or cold, it will have a cooling effect on your body because it's like that diaphoretic we were talking about. And it's just a yummy tea. So I drink that through the heat of the summer to really help deal with the intense heat that is hard for me, and it really helps a lot. Yeah, let's see. It's also great. It's one of my favorite honeys. It's the flavor, the lemony stuff and kind of minty flavor comes out and makes a really nice herbal honey. And we spoke about how to make some herbal honeys in the last class. It's very simple. So you would just take your lemon balm and chop it up, have a glass jar, chop it up, cut it up, and you can do it fresh or dried. And fill your jar, but fill it loosely. Don't want to pack it down too much, and because you don't want air bubbles to get stuck if it's packed down too much. And you fill your jar with honey and poke out the air bubbles with a chopstick and let that honey sit for a couple weeks. And you can aid it and make it faster by heating it up in a hot water bath in a double boiler, hot water in a pot, and heat it up half hour or so, and then the medicine will come out quicker if you do that. So it makes a really lovely honey and a really lovely glycerite. That's another kind of tincture we could make. So when I talk about making tinctures with these things, it's when you take your herb, dried or fresh, and if it's dried, you want about, this is sort of, if it's dried, you want about a third or so of the way filled your vessel, your jar of dried matter. If it's fresh, you want to fill the whole jar with the fresh because it has water in it still. And then you take vodka is traditionally what we use, but it can be any alcohol really. I think vodka is used because it doesn't have as much flavor. But you can use brandy, you can use rum, you can use gin. They're all about 40%. They all are 40% alcohol, and you just pour your vodka over your herbs into your jar. Again, poke out the air bubbles, fill it up again, and put the lid on, and keep it out of the sun. Shake it every few days, and after 4 to 6 weeks, you strain that out from the menstruum, and you have your alcoholic herbal tincture. Very simple. And anyone can do it, and then you have really great medicine right there. And it's the same way you make a glycerite. Same thing. Glycerin is very, very sweet liquid. It's often comes from different things: beets, sometimes coconut, I think maybe palm. Important to get your source to have it to be organic. It's used, I used to use it a bunch when my kids were young, and when I was first making my product line, I was making it so my tinctures would taste good for kids to take. So I would combine the alcohol and the glycerite or the glycerin. So it makes them taste better. It's much more expensive though to make your tinctures with glycerin, and they don't have as long a shelf life. But it's a great option for those who cannot have alcohol, and it's a good thing to can extract the medicine from these plants. So let's see. Lemon balm is also a wonderful nervine. It's very relaxing. So it works on the nervous system. It's good for anxiety. And it also, for mild to moderate depression, can be helpful to sort of lift the spirits, bring in some light. And one of my primary things I use this for, I use lemon balm for all these different things, but it's just so helpful for herpes. If you have any herpes cold sores or herpes anywhere on your body, the essential oil of lemon balm is really antiviral, particularly for the herpes virus. And so I recommend when anybody has any herpes, just when you first start, to feel the tingly or the itchy or the little sensations you start to feel, that's when you want to apply lemon balm essential oil directly onto those areas. And it can often nip it in the bud and it won't come out. But you have to notice that early sign. If you do get it, you still apply it to the sores and it will make it clear up much quicker. And at the same time, drink lemon balm tea internally, take lemon balm tincture internally, and also St. John's wort. And so it's nice to combine the infused oil of lemon balm and infused oil of St. John's wort. Is another beautiful yellow flowered plant that is very antiviral. And St. John's wort is a particular one just for the nerves, and these viruses live in our nerve endings. So St. John's wort and lemon balm is a great combination. And also for for shingles, for chicken pox, they're in the same virus family. And so they have also been shown to be effective in reducing the pain of shingles, reducing the duration of shingles. So anyways, and as well, this is not, so I recommend all that when you are dealing with herpes or shingles. And then also to take lysine, the amino acid lysine. So when you have the combination of using the herbs and the lysine, it just really is effective at either not nipping everything in the bud if you start to feeling it early, or just really reducing the pain and reducing the longevity of having these sores. So lemon balm's incredible in that way. And there's actually there's a product and then I get at the co-ops, it's an essential oil blend already made up that has Melissa, has a lemon balm essential oil in it primarily, and some other ones. And I will give you a link to that because I just want to spread that around because I know herpes sores can just be so painful. And it's really wonderful to have all these tools to use because it's just so helpful. So I'll share the link with that little product, and because I always have that little product on me, and then you're just, that you're gonna be all okay, not get any of these painful sores. So so those are some of the primary things I like to use lemon balm for. It's also great for upset tummies. In my tummy formulas, lemon balm is also in there. And for sleep, it's in a blend I use for sleep. It's one of the herbs for that as well. So let's see. Okay, so that's our first garden. And let's see. Okay. Are there any questions so far?
None yet.
No? Okay. Okay. If anybody has any questions, you can put it in the chat, or I can't see you all, but I don't know if you can still see them all. But anyways, So feel free. I'm happy to take questions. Um, So here is our next garden. This is the Echinacea Calendula Tulsi garden. Beautiful, again, beautiful bright colors, stunning flowers, butterfly, bee, hummingbird attractors, and tons of incredible medicine and great cut flowers. So yeah, just so the echinacea is the taller in the back, and then the calendula is sort of the medium height, and then you'll have your Tulsi growing down around the bottom. And so echinacea. So Echinacea purpurea is what was shown here. That's the echinacea that I grow. There is Echinacea angustifolia, and that is also very medicinal. And the purpurea here, I use the flowers and the leaves and the root. And I also do, when I make a blend of my echinaceas, I also do buy in some Echinacea angustifolia root and blend that in. It's harder I've tried to grow the angustifolia, and it's just, I haven't had much luck. So I've just stuck with the purpurea, and then I will buy in a little angustifolia and mix it in, because the root with that medicine is very potent for the immunomodulating, immune boosting effects. But this plant has plenty of potent medicine in it, just on its own. So you don't need the angustifolia. But it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It has these, orange cones. That's why it's called purple coneflower. And it will flower for a long time, as long as you keep cutting the flowers and deadheading them. It'll keep producing flowers for months. It's beautiful. And again, but when to harvest it, let's talk about growing it first. It is a perennial. It does like full sun. You can put the seeds out in the fall, actually, if your garden's ready, and you can plant the seeds out in the fall, and they'll come up in the spring. Or you can, and it's easy to save the seed. It's easy to save lots of seed, but the cone heads will dry, and they'll dry out there outside, and then you can just take them right from that and put it down in your soil, and they'll reseed. Help them to reseed. And so you can just do it that way. You can start it inside about 8 weeks before the frost-free date. And they germinate, I find, pretty easily. And they do like, I found a richer soil. I have them in 2 different spots in my gardens. And the spot where I just really haven't put much compost in, they are just kind of scraggly and tend to get fungal infections. And so then I moved a bunch of them down to another area where I'm putting in a lot of compost, and they're just big and vibrant and gorgeous right within the first year. So they do seem to like rich soil. So the whole plant we use for this one. So you harvest the flowers and the leaves and the stems, the whole thing, and can dry those and put them in tea, can tincture them. I like to dry, we do this at Herb Camp, but I like to also cut the flowers. They're so gorgeous, and they'll dry like that and retain their color. So I like to kind of cut a bunch of flowers and take a sturdy needle and thread and string them up one by one on top of each other through the center cone. And you have this hanging beautiful string of echinacea flowers. And then you can hang that in your kitchen. It's a really lovely decoration, but then also you can just snip off the bottom and plop it in your tea in the winter. So that's a fun way to save it. And so you, again, want the flowers when they're vibrant. And then for the roots, and this is just sort of a general rule on harvesting herbs. You want to harvest roots usually in the fall. You can harvest them in the spring as well. But the idea being that, that in the early spring, the energy is still down in the roots of the plant. Then as the season goes on, the energy of the plant goes into the leaves, goes into the flower, and it goes into producing the flower. And that is not when you want to harvest the roots. And then you want to wait for the plant to die back, things to get colder, fall to set in, and then the energies have gone back down into the root. And that is when you want to be harvesting your roots. So often I'll usually harvest my echinacea in the fall. And yeah, with echinacea for the roots, you want to wait, 3 years or so. 3 to 4 years is sort of the idealish time to get the echinacea roots. I have my echinaceas kind of babies grow in my other echinaceas, and it's all kind of mixed. And you can tell, the first year they'll just be kind of more spindly. They're not big roots, but when they get too old, you can tell. It just gets kind of fibrous, and you can tell when it doesn't look good. And then what I'll do is I will kind of snip off the little roots and separate stuff out. And then there will be these little purple, I think they have a term, but budlets that are underground, with the roots. But when you're chopping it up and harvesting it, you take off the roots, and then you can save a little budlet. Oh, here comes the rain. Let me know if you can still hear me. Can you still hear me so far?
Yeah, it's fine now.
Not affecting it? Okay. And so then as you can take, so I save those little pieces when I'm harvesting. That have some of them that have if I'm wanting more echinacea babies, and I just plant that where I want more echinacea, and that will, as long as it has a little purple budlet on it and a little bit of root, that will make a new echinacea plant. So yeah, that's how you harvest it. And echinacea is, perhaps you've heard, it's just an incredible immune booster. It boosts all of our different immune cells, and there have been many different studies showing this as well and backing that up. Studies showing that it boosts our lymphocytes, our leukocytes, our macrophages, interferon, and T lymphocytes, and among others. So it is definitely great for that, for fighting off any kind of infection at the first sign, first tingling, first scratchy throat, first feeling of malaise. Start your echinacea and some of these other herbs, and you often won't get the infection. You won't get the cold. You won't get the flu. Another thing that echinacea is great for is, can you still hear me?
We can hear the rain, but we can still hear you too. It's okay
right.
So far.
All right, let me know if you can't. I can move down to the floor or something. Okay. I'm not sure what I would do, but anyways, I'll get a little closer. So it's a great lymphatic, and so the lymphatic system is another important system in our bodies that we want to be mindful of and support when we are, in general, but in particular when we are fighting off infections or illnesses. It is a system of vessels and organs, and that the vessels run all along next to our circulatory system. And it is, it helps our body, protects our body from infections. It helps to clear out wastes, and helps with fluid balance in our bodies. And our lymphatic systems can get congested and stuck. And when that happens, because our white blood cells it's really a site of, like I said, of fighting off infection. So our lymph nodes will become enlarged when we're fighting off infection. And that's because the white blood cells in our lymph nodes are working hard and doing their thing. But if we have prolonged lymph nodes that are enlarged, that can be a sign of our lymphatic system being congested. If we have lymphedema, where we have holding on to liquid in our bodies, our ankles can be swollen. Our bodies can feel kind of swollen. It's swollen with our the interstitial sort of fluids that are in there that normally the lymphatic system helps move around and helps to drain off. But if it's congested, we can see that. And then just if we're prone to just getting illnesses frequently, it could be a lymphatic issue. And so Echinacea is a wonderful support for the lymphatic system. And so another reason why to sort of bring it into our healing for different imbalances and illnesses. Also good to know, just when speaking of the lymphatic system, that it is our circulatory system is pumped by the heart, and so that's what moves our blood around. But the lymphatic system is, again, like a set of vessels goes up and down our entire body, like the circulatory system. However, it's not pumped by the heart. And so it's pumped by the movement of our muscles. And so it's really just another good reason to get up and move every day, because if not, that can be another reason for our lymphatic system to become congested and not functioning well, as if we're not moving enough. So it's just a good thing to know. Another thing with Echinacea that isn't as commonly known is it is really great at skin healing. It's antimicrobial. Apart from being immune boosting, it is also antimicrobial. So it's good for our as a healing oil in that way as well. And sorry, let's see. And another thing that we that science has shown, backed up what we've already kind of known, is which is always interesting and fascinating to find out what they find, is that Echinacea has this ability to help repair. Well, we have our collagen in our tissues, and collagen is really important for our soft tissues, for the support of our soft tissues and our skin, and keeping that protective layer and everything that our soft tissue support in our bodies. So there's something that, so in the collagen is hydrated by hyaluronic acid, this thing called hyaluronic acid we have, and that hydrates the collagen and makes it healthy and robust. And so there are these bacteria and viruses that secrete an enzyme called hyaluronidase, which breaks down that hyaluronic acid that we have, therefore breaking down our collagen, and therefore making it easier for these bugs to get into our bodies and to get into our cells, and when we're or to keep the damage in a wound, perhaps. And so Echinacea inhibits hyaluronidase, inhibits that enzyme that some viruses and bacteria excrete to break down our collagen. So that's kind of neat to know that. And I also like to, for that purpose, I also like to add it to a tincture, and to actually, after you get a tick bite, to put the tincture of Echinacea and some other tinctures right on the tick bite, and in a tincture to take it internally as part of a blend, because it does do that, because the Lyme bacteria, the spirochete, does do that. It secretes that hyaluronidase so that it can more easily, get into and go deeper into our cells and our tissue. So I like to put Echinacea in there for those tick bites as well. So let's see here. Okay. Okay, Calendula is the next one in this little garden. Calendula is one of my favorites. Maybe I've said that to everyone, but it's just so beautiful and bright and cheery, and has so many just crucial uses in everyday ailments. Easy to grow. It's an annual. This is the first annual that we'll be talking about. And it reseeds itself really easily. Once you have it in your garden, it will reseed, and you'll see the little babies. And so you can keep getting more of it that way. And you can grow it very easily inside from seed. Start about 6 weeks before the frost-free date. Germinates very easily. You can also get it any garden centers. They'll have calendula. It likes full sun. Pretty decent. It likes to have it, it does better when it's rich soil. And once it starts flowering, it will flower for months. As long as you continue to cut the flowers, it will flower all the way into the frost. You'll get a huge abundance of these beautiful orange flowers for your medicine or to dry. It makes a great cut flower as well. Attracts pollinators as well. The part you want to use for medicine for this is the flower, not the leaves or the stem or the root, but the flower. And it's fun to put the petals in your salads. Traditionally, they've used the whole flowers dried, thrown them in soups in the winter. And you do want, when you're harvesting them for medicine, you do want the whole flower because a lot of the medicine is in that center part. Lots of the resins are in there. When you gather your calendula flowers, your fingers will eventually get sticky because it's very resinous. So yeah, again, harvest it when it's flowering. And I use, this is a primary herb in my all-purpose healing salve I make. So I make an oil with it and dry the flowers and then infuse them in olive oil. And, you let that sit, making an herbal oil, let that sit about 6 weeks or so, and then strain it out. And then the medicine has come out into the oil, and you can just use that or put it into a salve. I dry it and use it in teas throughout the winter as well. It has many different medicinal uses. It is a really great lymph support, like we just talked about with the Echinacea. Calendula is really wonderful too. And it's a vulnerary, like I talked about with the Yarrow, that it heals tissue. It's a wound healer, both inside and out. So I definitely have calendula in formulas or tincture formulas or tea formulas where someone may have leaky gut, which many of us do have these days. And that is really when the lining of the gut from inflammation, it can get damaged from, numerous reasons, whether it's food allergies or toxins or who knows what. And the lining of our guts can get damaged and actually, the tissue sort of separates and causes like gaps in our gut lining where the undigested or even digested food can escape into our bodies in ways that it should not be. And then this causes numerous different illnesses and issues and symptoms throughout the body. So that's leaky gut. And so calendula is one thing I will use when it seems this is happening with people, because it is really great at toning and healing the gut lining. And so it's really wonderful. I like to have it in a tea for that, with some other herbs as well, for gut healing. And it's nice and pretty to have that pretty orange color in there with the tea. And it is antimicrobial, it's antifungal. And so that's helpful in that situation as well. And it's great for, I always have a little bottle of echinacea in my bathroom for if I get any sores in my mouth, not cold sores, that's different. We want the lemon balm for that. But anything when we have gums that are sore or canker sores or just any kind of achy thing that's going on in our tongues or in our gums, we would take calendula tincture and dilute it in a little water and swish with that a few times a day, and the sores just go away in a day or two. Same thing for eye issues. I like to dilute it in water, or I'll also make a tea out of it and swish my eyes if I'm having just itchy eyes or stingy eyes or something, eye issues. Calendula is great at clearing things up in there as well. And in particular, it's really great for pink eye. There's really not a lot, in the mainstream medical world. There, I don't think there's anything much for pink eye. And calendula is really great at clearing that up. So you make a tea, a strong infusion of the tea, and then you have an eye cup and can swish with that, or just put it on a washcloth and drip it into the eye. And if it's with your kids, you just help them lie down and squeeze the washcloth over their eyes and let the warm tea of the calendula over their eyes, and do that numerous times a day until it clears up. That's really helpful. And then let's see, calendula is also, there's so many things. It's antifungal, so it's great. You can dry it. So you dry the flower heads, and then you can grind it up in a coffee grinder. And you can take that powder and mix it with a little clay. And so if you have athlete's foot, you can put it in your socks or in your shoes, that powder. Jock itch, you can put it in those areas. You can, again, make a strong tea and use it as a douche for vaginal yeast infections. It's really helpful for all of these things. And yeah, it also, it's a great bitter. So also yarrow is a great bitter as well. I don't think I said that. So bitters are really important. The bitter flavor is a really important thing to sort of try and bring back into our lives. We used to have the bitter flavor more in our foods, and modern day diets don't tend to have a lot of bitter flavor. And some folks would argue that could be some of the root causes of why so many of us are having digestive issues and have such a hard time breaking our foods down, or because this bitter taste, which we used to have more, is not as existent in our diets. So, you can get it from eating a nice bitter greens before a meal. The bitters in cocktails, that's one reason why we may have had those bitters in there in our cocktails. But you also can have an herbal blend of bitters. And it's the bitter taste that you want. So calendula is a nice warming bitter. Often they're cooling. So it's nice to have calendula mixed with another cooling bitter to balance out the energetics. And so you want to take bitters like 5 to 10 minutes before you eat a meal. And this, the bitter taste stimulates all your digestive processes. It starts the amylase in your mouth to break down your starches. It starts the pancreatic enzymes to be released. It releases your hydrochloric acid, and it helps your liver release and make bile, which break down your fats. And so it starts the whole digestive processes happening when you have bitters before you eat. And that just gets your whole system's like primed and ready for then when you eat your meal. And just and some people, just giving bitters is all they need when they're having digestive complaints. So I think bitters, everybody could just have a little bitters 5-10 minutes before you eat, and it's a handy thing and helpful for all kinds of digestive issues. So calendula is wonderful in that way as well. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it's also, as talking about the gut healing, it's been shown to also be good for ulcers. Yeah. So let's see. All right. Next. Okay, so this is the lower growing plant in our second garden, sacred basil, otherwise known as Tulsi. and Tulsi means the incomparable one in Sanskrit. Tulsi has been used for thousands of years. Hi. Tulsi has been used for thousands of years in India. It's grown all around the Hindu temples. It's really thought of as a very sacred plant. People grow it in pots in their homes, as it's supposed to offer divine protection in your homes. And it has, again, many different uses, medicinal uses and properties. It's easy to grow. Oh, this is another annual. So I placed sort of these two annuals in front of the echinacea in this garden, so that when it is time to harvest the roots of your echinacea, the two annuals in front of it or around it will already have gone by and be ready to pull out anyways. So you won't have to worry about harming any plants around your echinacea when you want to dig the roots out, when you have these annuals surrounding it. So yeah, it's an annual here. In Asia, it grows just in the wild all over. But it's easy to start. It is related to our culinary basil, but it doesn't really, has pretty different taste. It looks sort of similar. Yeah, I want to start 4 to 6 weeks inside before putting it out. You can direct seed it, and it will still get enough to harvest throughout the season. Not as much, but you can direct seed it. It grows to about 1.5 feet tall when it's flowering. When it's not flowering, it's just about a foot tall or so. It is like full sun. And you want to harvest it sort of in the same way that you harvest the lemon balm. So it'll make these, nice green mounds of green leaves, and then it'll send up those little stalks with its little flowers. And once it starts, the flowers start opening is when it's time to harvest. And you can just cut the whole thing down, grab the whole thing and cut it down to the ground, and it will grow back up, and you can get numerous harvests from Tulsi over the season. And you do want to make sure you get those flowers when they start flowering, or else it won't, and then it'll just get all scraggly and it won't keep producing more. So once it starts doing the flowering, you want to just harvest it, cut it back, and it'll just keep producing more and more all season. It has lots of volatile oils. It's in the mint family. So most anything in the mint family is really good for our digestion as well. And yeah, it makes a lovely tea, and as all these do. And so you can dry it for tea. You can make it into a tincture, into a glycerite. This also makes a really lovely honey. It makes a really tasty glycerite too. And yeah, so it's been used traditionally for many different things, from treatments to colds and flus, excess mucus in the upper and lower respiratory tracts, and digestive issues. And I think I primarily use it for 3 different things primarily. And one of them, top one being that it is an adaptogen. And an adaptogen is there's many different adaptogens in the herbal world. An adaptogen means that it helps our bodies adapt to stress. And there's different kinds of adaptogens, and Tulsi is a relaxing adaptogen. And they work on our hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal sort of complex that has sort of loops and feedback loops with each other that controls our stress response. And so many of us these days have a lot of stress and can end up getting stuck in stress, in a high stress mode, in chronic stress. And chronic stress can just lead to many different ailments in our bodies and in our beings and in our spirits, including insomnia, anxiety, depression, weight gain, weight loss, fatigue, brain fog, really anything, any imbalance. But so it's really wonderful that we have these this class of herbs that can work on our stress system, our stress feedback loops. And what they do is they just, it gets out of whack, or those three systems just get all out of balance. And these herbs, and Tulsi being one of them, will help bring that back into balance and reduce our stress hormones that are being secreted. And Tulsi in particular has been shown with the different studies that it does greatly reduce the cortisol in our bodies, which is one of the big stress hormones. Lower levels of cortisol have been shown to improve our mental clarity, improve our anxiety, decrease depression, and in long term they can reduce different risks for aging, mental health issues with aging when we have lower cortisol levels. And they help us, these adaptogens just help us become more resilient in the face of stress. Of course, when we're dealing with chronic stress, we also want to deal with our lifestyle and make changes in our lifestyle and do whatever we can to bring in calming activities and relaxing activities and all that as well. But adaptogens are really wonderful to have as an aid in there as well, as another tool for our stress. Really important tool for our stress. And sacred basil is one of the only adaptogens that we can take in a tea. It makes a really lovely tea. So, and I think of sacred basil when I want an adaptogen for someone that may hold their stress in their bellies. Some people, when we get stressed out, we sort of feel it in different areas in our bodies, and some of us can hold it just feel a digestive upset when we get stressed or anxious. And so I think of sacred basil in particular for folks who hold their stress in that area. And yeah, and it makes a lovely tea. It tastes good. Yeah, let's see. Another primary thing I use it for is that it has a blood sugar lowering effect. So with folks who have diabetes in their family, or who have high blood pressure, who have diabetes, then I add this into their tea blends or their tincture blends. And it does, it can significantly lower your blood sugar. So you do want to be monitoring your blood sugar if you're on blood sugar medications, if you do start taking Tulsi, to adjust things accordingly. And it's also been lots of studies done on it showing that it has lots of anti-cancer activity, and as well that it has radioprotective activity, and that so when one is getting radiation for cancer treatment, then I always encourage them to take Tulsi tea or tincture. And the radiation is killing off the cancer bugs, but it's also damaging the DNA in our cells. And so Tulsi has the ability to protect our cells from the radiation. So that's another primary place where I like to really get some Tulsi into folks. So yeah, I think those are our 2 gardens and our 6 herbs in general, or not in general. Those are sort of some details about all of them. And so I wanted to, sort of open it up to questions that you have. There's, and also want to say, oops. Okay, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Were you not done with your slideshow? I thought you were finished.
No, I can be. No, it's totally fine. I'm just,
We can go back into screen sharing if you'd like, if I was too fast on
All right.
that.
That's fine. So, yeah, also to say these two gardens, these 6 plants, they all, as I've said, but they all make great teas. And so you can grow all these 6 plants and harvest them and dry them, and then you could actually combine all of them into one tea blend. And you would have this kind of multi-purpose, really yummy, I mean, it will cover a lot of bases. You don't need to use them all, but it's kind of fun. I wanted to, this could be like a tea garden. You can use all these for teas, and, it would be like it would be sort of like digestive support, soothes the nerves, adaptogenic, immune boosting, gut healing, super duper tea. You'd be hitting all kinds of things with this tea, and it's pretty. It would be purple and orange and red flowers in it, and so that's kind of fun. You could actually make a tea blend with all of these, and then of course there's numerous different tea blends that we could make from combining these different herbs together as well. So we can talk a bit more about that, or anyways, if you have any questions.
Rory is asking if these plants can be dried in a dehydrator to speed the process.
Yes, definitely can be dried in a dehydrator. I was just given a dehydrator, so I haven't done that myself, but you can definitely, it would be great to dry them in a dehydrator, for sure.
And Jinya, it looks like you have a question, but you're muted. If you could just unmute yourself first.
Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you. I love hearing all about the oils, but I want to know how you create the oil.
Yes. Okay, great. So, to make an oil, to make an herbal oil, it's very simple. But what you want, you can take fresh plant material and put it in an olive oil is just fine. Extra virgin, I like to organic, because you're putting it on your body, and it's a really wonderful oil for your skin. Olive oil is. So you can just use olive oil. You can get fancy and use all kinds of other oils, but I just use olive oil. And you can put fresh plant material into olive oil and let it infuse and strain it out. But there's just much greater risk. There's much greater risk for it getting mold and growing things because there's water still in the fresh plant material. So I tend to recommend people, even though I myself do sometimes make it with fresh plant material, but I'm very careful and I do certain things with it so that it doesn't mold. But in general, I like to recommend to folks to just use dried plants when you're making oil. It's just safer that way. And so any of these you dry, and then I was thinking, well, yarrow's pretty dry, so it'd probably be safe. You could probably just make that with fresh plant material. But anyways, let's just say you want to dry these herbs. And then the same way that I talked about making your tincture, same kind of thing. You take a glass jar and you put in your dry plant material, and you want it, chopped up finely, cut up finely, just to expose more surface area. And then you don't want to, using your dried plant material, so fill it about a third of the way full with your dried plant material. And then fill it, or third to halfway full with your dried plant material. And then you pour your olive oil until the jar is filled. And then you take a chopstick, that's my favorite tool, and you stir it around and poke out the air bubbles. You don't want to, you just want to, every time you're making something like this, is to make sure you get out the air bubbles, because if you have air bubbles in these things, that's the places where mold can grow, where fungusy mold things can grow. So you just poke out the air bubbles, stir it around, top it off again with a little oil, and put your lid on. And you let that sit. and there's debate in the herbal world. Do you put it in the sun? Do you not put it in the sun? And I've gone back and forth myself. Some things my St. John's wort, I just will put it in the sun for a little while and then I'll take it out. But, because some say that the sun will degrade the oils. So keep it somewhere, perhaps out of the sun, and let that sit, shake it every few days. And then after 4 to 6 weeks, the medicine will have infused out into the oil. And then you strain it through cheesecloth is a great thing. You can get these, a great thing for straining herbs and oils also are, or tinctures and oils are these, what are they? Nut milk bags I've found. And you can get those at co-ops and they're a great thing. And then, because then they'll last longer than cheesecloth and you can just clean them afterwards. But yeah, anyway, so you strain it through cheesecloth or a nut milk bag and squeeze it out. And there you have your herbal oil. Hey, Lynn.
Hi, I just want to say thank you so much. And last week I've already I made my own chai from your recipe and I'm drinking it right now.
Oh, that's so exciting.
And, oh my gosh, I felt so powerful to actually make my own chai latte instead of going out and buying it. So I just want to say thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate this idea that you can actually take all the dried flowers, mix them together and kind of make an all-in-one. That just feels really, for my lifestyle, that feels really palpable. So I appreciate the practicality of what you're suggesting, and thank you. Anyway, just wanted to say thank you. And
you're welcome. Thank you. That's great. That's awesome. You made the chai. I love it.
It's stronger than I thought it would be. I really don't need a lot. It's amazing.
It is strong. Yes. Yeah. And then you can water it down with the water or put in more milk or
Right. Thank you.
That's great.
Someone else is saying that she's definitely interested in the product that you mentioned that you carry around that can be purchased at food co-ops. Is that something you can send me the link for, or can we put it in chat right now for them?
Yeah, I'll send you the link for it. I'll send you. I guess. Yeah. I'll send you the link for it.
And then I can forward it by email to everyone who's come to this meeting.
Yeah.
Great.
I'll definitely send the link. It's called Melissa Simplex, and it's by Pranorama. But I'll send the link. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Any other questions? Kimberly, I was actually wondering, what are the other primary herbs that are adaptogens that are good for lowering cortisol levels?
Oh, well.
Alongside the Tulsi.
Yeah.
It's been a cortisol kind of year.
Yeah, definitely. There's a good amount there. And they have different sort of, reishi mushroom is a good one, another relaxing adaptogen. And also, all kinds of other health benefits. So it's, so when I kind of think of an adaptogen for somebody, there's different ones. And so you want to sort of try and pick one. You sort of look at what the herbs are also good for, apart from the adaptogen effect, and see what, to pair that with the person as well. So reishi also really supports the liver, anti-cancer. It's good for allergies. So if somebody's, has a lot of allergies and is also needing adrenal, stress support, then reishi, I think more of reishi, among other things. Yeah. And then there's ashwagandha, and that's a root. You use the root of the ashwagandha plant, and we can grow ashwagandha here. You can't overwinter it, but the root gets big enough in one season that you can harvest the ashwagandha root. So that's kind of cool. And so ashwagandha, again, is a relaxing adaptogen. I think I may have mentioned that in the last class that it's traditionally used in Ayurvedic medicine, and they use it in their a warm milk at night, and because it's calming, it can help people with sleep, and so it's often put in that golden milk with the turmeric in the evening time. the ashwagandha powder. Ashwagandha is also sort of great at like brain injuries, brain healing if you've had a concussion, among other things. There's eleuthero, and that's Siberian ginseng, and that is more of a stimulating adaptogen. It's not like stimulating like caffeine or something, but some people, if they're extra sensitive, have them not take a dose of the eleuthero in the evening time because it could affect your sleep. Not for everybody at all, but eleuthero, that's really sort of deep when you got intense fatigue, showing up, that you and your stress response is showing up with really sort of more intense fatigue throughout the day kind of thing. Gosh. Yeah, there's some for you. There's more adaptogens, but
that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Not to be rude, but I regretfully missed your other presentation, and now you piqued my interest with the chai tea. Is there a way to get the recipe?
Sure. Yeah, I had sent out a handout for the last class, so
I'm happy to send that to you, Liz.
Oh, thank you, Jared. I'll have to keep an eye on these classes. Are they offered through you or through Howe Library, or?
This is the second of 2 herbalism classes with Kimberly offered through the library.
Oh, great.
This is the end of our short series, but you could certainly go to Kimberly for her own classes and workshops this summer, assuming
Excellent.
she's offering any.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, you can. She has a beautiful website you could check out.
Very helpful, very interesting. Thanks for this class, Emily. I mean, Kimberly. Where did I get him?
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for this great information. And I wanted to say that I've been drinking the golden milk with the ashwagandha because I happened to have some I had got at some point and I just kind of forgot about it. So so I've been enjoying that.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. That's
and
great.
I was excited that you mentioned the reishi because I actually found a bunch of reishi on the Ballard Trail last summer and I dried it. I had this huge jar of dried reishi and I don't know why I didn't do anything with it yet, but
great.
I didn't know it was an adaptogen. I had heard something about for cancer and for immune system in general, but now I'm inspired to make a tincture out of that as well. So
yeah, great. That's awesome. Yeah, it's amazing. I love finding reishi growing. It's just so gorgeous and that bright dark red and it's just shiny and it's just on the hemlock. It grows on dead hemlock trees and it's just such a magical thing to find that.
Yeah, it was the first year I saw it, but it's actually coming back again this year.
Yep.
On the same down.
Back on the same place.
Tree.
Yeah. So you harvested it. That's fine because mycelium is in the dead log, so it'll come back.
Right. Yeah.
So that's great. That's great to hear. And did you make golden paste or did you?
I did. I used to make the turmeric. I used to make the golden milk, just to have at night. And what I found was it was so much work to do it that I stopped doing it every night. But having the paste makes it easy because you just take, like you said, it's so easy.
Yeah. And that's important with all this stuff to try and find out the easiest way that we can get this in, because that's a big part of what I think about.
Yes, this is all wonderful information. Thank you so much for offering this.
You're welcome.
And maybe one of these days I'll get into one of your classes. I think I tried last summer and you were full.
Oh, yeah. That is because with COVID, I had to really limit the class size.
Right. Of course.
Yes. Well, I'd love to have you.
Liz is asking whether there are any combinations of herbs that are not advisable. I assume for making teas or. other recipes?
That's a good question. Gosh. Huh. You mean from the ones I just spoke about, or just in general?
Liz, can you clarify that? You're muted at the moment.
Actually, this is Liz's husband. We're sharing a website.
Sorry. Okay.
No,
I would explain it. Yeah.
That's a valid question. I mean, we are growing most of the ingredients you've talked about here, but I would first of all ask the question for the things you're talking about tonight. But then, even beyond that, I mean, is there some counterintuitive things about combinations that are not recommended?
Gosh. You know, I mean, with so all the ones I just talked about, like I said, it would be great to make a nice, big old, lovely tea blend with those. So I, you know, in general, I'd say not really. For these, not really. These are fine. And, you know, yeah, just some herbs not go well with other herbs, or is it dangerous to like combine some herbs with another herb? Gosh, you know, in general, my first response would be no, not really. But you know, when you get into the more particulars, like, oh gosh, I mean, when you start looking at energetics of herbs and how they're having a cooling effect, so the herbs. All herbs do this in our bodies. They'll have a cooling effect or a drying effect or a moistening effect, or a warming effect. And so when I think of combining herbs to make a tincture or to make a tea, I'm mindful of those are called the energetics. And so if somebody in their body is extra warm and extra inflamed. When there's extra inflammation in the body, then there's extra heat in the body. And so I wouldn't want to give them a tea or a tincture that just has all warming herbs in it, because even though maybe those herbs, other properties of those herbs might be good for something in their bodies, the effect of the heat on their body wouldn't be good. And so that kind of thing, you know, is when it gets more nuanced and when you're looking sort of more at nuances of these things. And that would be if you're taking that, you know, for long-term kind of a thing, then I'd want to make sure that things, you know, and weren't too, if somebody's really dry and you're giving them herbs that are just drying things out, too astringent, too drying, then you can make them too dry, and that can cause imbalances. So there's that kind of stuff, but it's kind of gets a bit more nuanced and a bit more deeper into the herbal knowledge realm. But like with these 6, but then you can balance them out. You can be like, ooh, I really want this really drying herb for this person, even though they're dry. So I'm going to put in some licorice and some cinnamon to moisten that up and counteract that dryness in there. So there's that kind of a thing that's good to be mindful of. But like, say these, you know, these 6 plants, there's warming and cooling herbs mixed in there. So as far as the energetics, it balances things out. These are balanced out.
So it sounds like you're saying just experiment.
And you could experiment. Yeah, I don't think, you know, it's not like.
Well, I mean, you know, Ayurvedically, we are different parts of the scale. And that's one of the things that all of our experimentation in this world has really led us to understand. So I'm thinking we already have 5 of these 6 plants are growing in the garden right now. So I would just be kind of inclined to try it, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. And just be really mindful of your body and what it's feeling.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
Any more questions?
All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for coming. And Kimberly, thank you. That was wonderful. I really enjoyed that myself. And it was wonderful having you here for both of these 2 presentations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've enjoyed it myself. So thank you all for being here and having an interest in all this, and hopefully using more plants and bringing more plants into your lives.